I'm Susan Bach. I'm the Northeast Wisconsin Regional Director for the Better Business Bureau. Thank you so much for joining us today and for coming back when it was rescheduled because we had an ice storm for our original date. So thank you so much for venturing out into the rain today. We're here to talk about how to be a smarter consumer, how to spot those common scams and avoid them. But just by a show of hands, who here is familiar with my organization, the Better Business Bureau? Have you ever heard of us before? Have you ever used any of our services? Okay, a few, good. We're a nonprofit organization, so despite the fact that we have the word bureau in our name, we're not a government agency, we're not a law enforcement agency. We're really a nonprofit organization, and our mission is to connect businesses with trustworthy consumers. And we've been around for 110 years. We began in 1912. So on the left, I have listed some of our core services. And those are probably what people are most familiar with the Better Business Bureau are our free business reviews and charity reviews. So when you're doing pre-purchase research on a company that you want to hire, like a roofer or a auto mechanic or something, you can come to the BBB and see what we have to say about them. We can tell you how many complaints they've had, how they've resolved those complaints, and then we also issue a rating for them as well. Some people might be interested in donating to the current Ukraine crisis or something. We also have reviews on charities that you might be interested in donating to. A lot of people know us as the complaint organization. You file a complaint with the Better Business Bureau. We still do that. It's our dispute resolution service. So people file complaints for all different kinds of reasons. Maybe the roof is leaking that they just paid for, or they didn't receive something that they ordered online. You can file a complaint through the Better Business Bureau. It's free, and we will be an intermediary to try and get that complaint resolved. A lot of people do that before they file a small claims action because our service is free and it generally takes about 30 days, which is quite a bit quicker than small claims court. And then we also have a place on our website called Scam Tracker. So if you have been contacted by a scammer, you can go and report it on that website, bbb.org/scamtracker. A lot of people are really highly motivated to warn their friends, their neighbors. That's where you can do it on that website. Or, and we take those reports and we plot them on a map. So you also could go into that website and see what's happening in your neighborhood. See if there's a door-to-door salesman or something that you should be warned about. We also investigate bad businesses. Now, I said that we're not a law enforcement or a government agency, but we do take the information that we receive on our Scam Tracker website or through complaints, and we use that to add profile alerts or additional information to a company's BBB report. We might issue a media release to the public. We also refer cases to your local law enforcement agencies, the Department of Justice, the Federal Trade Commission, etc. We also create standards for good ethical businesses through our accreditation program. And last but not least, we have an advertising review program. So that means that we're out monitoring websites and newspapers and radio ads, things like that, to see if we're looking for questionable claims from companies. In fact, that's actually how the Better Business Bureau started back in 1912. So I don't know if you can see that on the right. That is an ad from, a typical ad from 1912. And if you can't read it, it says, it's an ad for sanitized tapeworms as a way to banish fat. No diet, no exercise needed. You just swallow this sanitized tapeworm. So that was a pretty typical ad back in 1912. That's kind of how the term snake oil salesman got coined. And as you can see, there was a lot of mistrust with consumers towards advertising and businesses in general. And so a group of advertising executives got together and they said, These kinds of ads are making our whole industry look bad. So we should create some standards, and they did. They called them the do's and don'ts of advertising. And that way we can tell consumers that company either meets our standards or doesn't meet our standards. And that was basically the genesis of the Better Business Bureau back in 1912. So, okay, but we are here to talk about how to be a smarter consumer. And I could, hand you a list of websites to avoid, and don't answer the phone if this phone number calls you, or beware of somebody calling you and pretending to be fill in the blank. But the problem is that scammers change their name, their address, their telephone number, even their website often. We saw this in the beginning of the pandemic when people would go online to try and purchase, masks and toilet paper and hand sanitizer, and they'd be out of all of those supplies everywhere. So people would turn to the internet, and they'd order from some website that they'd never heard of, and they'd give them their money, and the products would never come. And then you'd go to try and find that original website, and it would be gone. And then it would pop up, maybe a couple of weeks later under a different name and a different address. So I think the best way to stay one step ahead of those scammers is to teach you the red flags of a scam. How do they operate, so that we can be sort of one step ahead of those scammers. So one thing that all scammers or con artists have in common is that they're eventually going to want to get paid, right? Back when I started working with the Better Business Bureau back in 2004, lottery scams were big. Do you guys remember those? You'd receive a letter saying that you had won the Australian lottery or the Spanish lottery, and then you were instructed to send an envelope full of cash to pay for taxes and fees, and then you'd get your millions of dollars, right? Well, naturally, consumers were reluctant to send envelopes full of cash. So the scammers changed their tactics, and then they said, send us a check or give us your credit card number. But the problem with those two methods of payment is that they have some built-in consumer protections, right? You can cancel a check, or you can dispute a fraudulent charge on your credit card. So the scammers changed their tactics again, and now the most common ways that they like to get paid are some of these four ways. So they'll either ask you to purchase a gift card or a prepaid debit card. They'll ask you to send money to them by one of those peer-to-peer payment apps like Venmo or Apple Pay. A lot of them use cryptocurrency now, especially in the form of an investment scam. And then sometimes they'll ask you to pay with a wire transfer or something like that through Western Union or MoneyGram. So how would that look like? You might get a call from someone pretending to be your utility company, and they say, you are behind on your utility bill, and if you don't pay today, we're going to cut off your power. Has anybody had something like that? But then they'll say, if you pay with a gift card, we will discount what you owe by 50%. Or our credit card processing payment system is down. So you're going to have to go to the local Walgreens or CVS store and purchase one of those prepaid gift cards or debit cards, and then call us back and read us the numbers on the front and the back. And once you do that, the scammer is going to take that money from your gift card and totally drain it, and they're going to go and purchase something else, or maybe even create a new credit card with it, a duplicate credit card. So sometimes scammers ask for method through Venmo. Is anybody familiar with any of those peer-to-peer payment apps? Okay, my 22-year-old college son is very familiar because they don't write checks anymore. Young people don't write checks anymore. They're a method where money will go directly from one account to another account without a credit card, without a check. All you need from them is either their username or their telephone number. You download an app on your smartphone or your tablet, and that's how you can use these payment systems. Cryptocurrency, if anybody asks asks you to invest in cryptocurrency. That's typically a scam. And then wire transfer, again, if all you would need to pick up like a wire transfer, so if the scammer asked you to send money by Western Union, all they would really need is a code that they would give to the clerk at Western Union to pick up that money. So what do all of these payment methods have in common? The scammer can remain anonymous, and it's irreversible. So you can't redo or contact anyone at Venmo to reverse the transaction. They're irreversible. So the bottom line here, that the one thing I want you to remember today is that if a company asks you to pay for goods and services using one of these very untraditional methods of payment, it's probably a scam, okay? So sometimes the scam is on the other foot, and the scammer is the one who wants to get paid. I use that in air quotes there. So maybe you're selling something online, or you're applying for a job or something. The scammer is going to send you a check and ask you to deposit that check into your personal account, and then start withdrawing money against that deposit to pay for other things. We call this a check overpayment scam. This actually happened to me and my husband. We're from Winneconne, and my husband was selling a boat. And honestly, folks, this was like nothing special. There was really nothing special about this fishing boat. But as soon as we put our ad on Craigslist, the next day we got an email from somebody in the United Kingdom who wanted to buy our fishing boat. And not only did they say that they would pay what we were asking, they wanted to give us more than what we were asking for, because we were going to have to pay the transportation company to ship our fishing boat over to the United Kingdom. So, does this sound fishy to anybody? No pun intended. Yes, I spotted this right away, fortunately, and I knew that if I had accepted that check, which was counterfeit, and deposited it, it would have bounced. So then I would have been on the hook to pay back the bank for any of the money that I withdrew against that deposit. So, why does this scam work? It's because there's a loophole in the banking system that they are required to release the funds from a check before they can tell for sure that it is a legitimate check. But rest assured, when they do discover that it's counterfeit or fraudulent, they will come after you and ask you to repay the money. And that may take weeks, it may take months. But the bottom line here is watch for this check overpayment scam. Never accept or deposit a check for over the amount, and then withdraw money until it's cleared, again, which could take several weeks. Okay, if anybody ever has a question, just raise your hand, all right? Okay. So I talked a little bit about this at the beginning, but we saw an explosion of bogus websites at the start of the pandemic. And so I think it's really important to kind of teach you here how to spot a fraudulent website. Now, normally the Better Business Bureau would say, stick to those tried and true websites if you are shopping online, the Amazons, the Targets, the Walmarts of the world, the ones that we know to be legitimate. But again, during the pandemic, supplies were very hard to come by, so people were kind of going off the beaten path. So, if you are shopping online, how do you recognize a bogus website? Look for ample contact information. It should have a phone number, an email address, a physical address, even a live chat function. An unreputable website will be very unprofessional. It will have spelling and grammatical errors, very low resolution or low quality photos, and then non-working links. So all of those Visa logos and things at the bottom, those should link to the Visa website, and if you click on them, it should take you, somewhere else. So if you start clicking on those logos and if they don't go anywhere, again, that's not a good sign. And then something that we do at the Better Business Bureau all the time is we check something called the who is information. And that is the website that I use, whois.domaintools.com, although there's plenty of other places that you could get the same information. And Whois information will tell you when the website was created, where it was created, or what country it was registered in. Maybe even will give you the name of the contact person who created that website. And why are we looking for that? Because if it contradicts something on the website, like maybe the website says, we're a family-owned business, we've been around for 50 years, but you check the domain, the Whois information, and it said that it was created last week and it was registered in Iceland or something, then that's a red flag, of course. And then always, you know, a plug for my own organization, we want you to check websites or companies with the Better Business Bureau first at bbb.org, okay? So let's talk about imposter scams. So anytime somebody is pretending to be somebody else, a scammer is pretending to be somebody else, we call that an imposter scam. So typically they pretend to be from some kind of government agency like the IRS or the Social Security Administration. And they're telling you, you know, that there's a problem with your tax return or there's a problem with your Social Security number and it's going to be deactivated unless you call them back. Sometimes they pretend to be a relative in trouble. Anybody had that? Grandma, you know, this is your grandson? Okay. During the pandemic, we had scammers calling pretending to be your local health department saying that you needed to pay for a COVID test or a COVID vaccine, which of course wasn't true. And sometimes they pretend to be, you know, one of the trusted organizations in your life, like maybe your bank or your credit card company or your local police department. Always they're going to ask you for personal information, like your Social Security number or your credit card information. They're very good con artists, okay? They do this for a living. This is like a full-time job for them. And they're very convincing. So for every objection you may have in an imposter scam, they're going to have something to overcome that objection. So a couple of years ago, we had a woman in the audience who said, yeah, I received one of those grandson calls. She got a call, and the person on the other end of the line, who was a scammer, said, Grandma, this is your favorite grandson. And she kind of filled in the blanks for them. Oh, Johnny, is that you? And, okay. And she said, Johnny, it doesn't sound like you. You sound funny. And he, because he was a good scammer, he had an answer for that. And he said, I broke my nose in the car accident, and that's why I'm talking funny. So they're very convincing. Sometimes scammers pretend to be from tech support. Has anybody gotten one of those where I'm calling from Apple, I'm calling from Microsoft, something like that? They'll go ahead and tell you that they can tell from their headquarters halfway across the world that your computer in New London, Wisconsin has some kind of virus, which is total baloney. Okay, that's just not possible. But then they'll instruct you, you know, sit down at your computer, go to this website, click here, enter this code, because they're telling you that they're removing the virus that they have discovered on your computer, but what they're actually doing might be downloading a virus or downloading some kind of spyware onto your computer. So don't fall for that line like we can tell that you have a virus on your computer, because it's not possible. So if you get one of those calls, just totally hang up. And then sometimes too, scammers will pretend to be, you know, boyfriends or girlfriends or somebody that you meet on one of those dating websites. But we know that they're scammers because the red flags are that they want to move quickly off of those legitimate dating sites and start texting you or emailing you off the site because they know that they're being monitored on those dating sites. And then they'll say, I would love to meet you, but my car broke down or my daughter's in the hospital or something. Eventually they're going to ask you for money. And if they've already discovered that maybe you don't have a lot of money, then they're going to find another reason another use for you. So they could say, hey, could you do me a favor? Do you mind if I have a couple of packages shipped to your house? Do you mind opening up a bank account for my friend who's going to be moving to the area? That means that they're making a money mule out of you, and they're actually roping you into their illegal activity. So be careful of that. Okay. So we know that they're really good at what they do. How are we going to tell a real person, a real IRS agent from an imposter? Well, rule number one is that the government is never going to start communications with you by a phone call or a text message. If there was something truly wrong with your tax return or your social security number, they would send you a regular letter first, right? They would never start by calling you. So anybody who calls you out of the blue and says, hey, we're from the FBI, the IRS, just hang up on them. And then it's also important to know that scammers have technology called spoofing devices that they can use to trick your caller ID to display anything that they want. So we always tell people that you really can't trust your caller ID. So if you have an incoming call and it says the IRS or the New London Police Department or something, you really can't trust that that's really who's calling you. So the bottom line here is never give out any kind of personal information like your social security number or your credit card number over the phone unless you initiate the call. So what do I mean by that? Every year I get a call from the Appleton Post-Crescent and they say, do you want to renew your newspaper subscription? And I say yes, but I have a personal rule. I never give out my credit card number over the phone. So I take the young man's name and I say, I will call you back and I'll be happy to pay then. So I don't look at my caller ID to display to see what number he's calling from. I will go to my bill, look for the customer service number, call that, ask for the person who called me, and then I'm okay to give my credit card number out over the phone because I know that that person is legitimate. Does that make sense? Okay. Talk a little bit about home improvement scams. I wanted to throw this in here because we are coming up on spring when a lot of these door-to-door sellers are going to come around to our neighborhoods. And especially, sometimes if we get like a good thunderstorm or something or a tornado, we'll have some storm chasers coming into the area. And the line that you want to be careful of is the price is good for today only, or, hey, I was repaving your driveway or your neighbor's driveway down the street, and I happen to have some leftover materials. So those are the two scams that we hear about most often. Now let's think about that a little bit. If it was a good contractor, a good businessman, would they accidentally have leftover materials? No, my husband is in the trades too. They measure twice, cut once. Same thing with like a driveway asphalt repaver. They're not going to accidentally have leftover material. So, but the complaints that we hear about after the fact are that the work was shoddy. Actually, we had one woman complained that it was just motor oil that they dumped on the driveway to make it look black. They didn't put any asphalt on it at all. And when you try and complain to them later, you can't find them because they're from out of state, out of the area. So make sure, if somebody like that comes to the door, first of all, if they say the price is good for today only, step away. That's exactly the time where you want to say, I need a little bit more time to do some research. We want to make sure that you check out their company report on the Better Business Bureau's website. So even if they're from another state, we should have a report on them. You'll also want to ask them to see if they have the required licensing or insurance. Very important to check those out first before you give them any money. People can lose just tons of money. Okay, let's talk a little bit about robocalls. Does everybody know what a robocall is? Or have you received one? Every time I make a presentation like this, people are like, please tell me how to stop those annoying robocalls. 54 billion robocalls in 2019. So here's how you stop them. Here's some good advice. First of all, we want to make sure that everybody is signed up for the Do Not Call list. You can do it on the phone or on a website. And I know what you're all thinking. I have signed up for the Do Not Call list, and I still get those darn calls. You're right. Only legitimate telemarketers are going to use the Do Not Call list. A scammer is not going to pay attention to that. So it will reduce the number of legitimate telemarketing calls you get. It won't stop the scammers. So how do we stop the scammers? Well, on your home phone, you should contact, let's say you have a Spectrum or something, call up Spectrum customer service and say that you want to enable call blocking on your phone. I have this on mine as well. So what happens is that Spectrum will use a blacklist, and when a phone call comes in, they will filter it through that blacklist to see if it's a known telemarketing or scammer call, and if it is, they will disconnect the call automatically. So how does that look like from your end? You're sitting at home, maybe you're eating dinner, the phone rings. If it rings once and it stops ringing, I know it was a telemarketer, so I don't have to jump up from the dinner table or from my TV show and answer the call. If you can't do that, then definitely get an answering machine to screen your calls. A legitimate person is going to leave a message, a scammer might not. On your cell phone as well, they do have call blocking settings that you can enable. On your iPhone, it's called Silence Unknown Callers. And then if you have an Android phone, you would have to reach out to your manufacturer or your cell phone company to see how you would adjust that setting as well. And just so you know, some of those features are free, but some will charge a fee. It is free through Spectrum to enable call blocking. But the worst thing that you can do always is start pushing buttons. So remember that it's a computer-generated call that called you, right? It's a computer speaking on the other end. Some people will listen and they'll say, the computer will say, press 1 to be connected to an agent. Press 2 to be removed from our call list. That's the worst thing you can do. Don't press any buttons because, remember, they just dialed your phone randomly. They don't know if it's a legitimate number or not. If you start pressing buttons, you're not only telling the computer that it's a legitimate number that they've reached, you're also telling the computer what's a good time to reach you, what time you're going to be home, and that you are willing to listen to instructions and follow instructions. So now they're going to sell your phone number to other telemarketing firms. So instead of reducing the number of robocalls you'll actually get more. So don't do that. There is some help, though. Back in 2021, there was some legislation passed that, I won't get into the nitty-gritty, but basically if the originating phone number is different than the number that is about to be displayed on your caller ID, the phone company is required to give you some kind of warning. So has anybody ever had like a message on their caller ID that says fraud or scam likely or something like that? Yeah. Yep. So that's why. So it's not going to disconnect the call, but it will give you some warning. And when you see that, that means that somebody is spoofing their phone number. Okay? All right. Let's also talk a little bit about identity theft. I think that's a really important part about being a smarter consumer. So back in 2017, almost half of America had their personal information breached in the Equifax data breach. There's been, too many retailers and insurance companies and educational sources and hospitals that has had a data breach. So I think it's about time that we start thinking it's not a matter of if my data is compromised, or it's not a matter of when my data will be compromised, but let's just assume that it's already compromised. And once it is, in the hands of a scammer, it lives on in the dark web forever and ever to be bought and sold. So we really need to be proactive on protecting our own identity. So here's, some recommendations for you. I want everybody to check your credit report annually at annualcreditreport.com. You can do it online, or you can do it on that phone number. And actually, because of the pandemic, instead of annually, you can get a free credit report every week through April 20th. So when you get that credit report, you're going to want to look at it for all of the accounts that are listed on there, past and present. And if you don't recognize a report, like a loan that you took out or a credit card or something, that could be a sign that you're a victim of identity theft, that somebody used your social security number to open up a new credit card. I also want you to set up informed delivery through the United States Postal Service. So a lot of identity theft happens actually when mail is stolen out of your mailbox. I don't know if anybody was watching the news a couple of weeks ago, but there was somebody, I think in the Kaukauna, Little Chute area, that was driving around subdivisions and just pulling out mail from people's mailboxes. They were trying to get checks, they were trying to get account numbers. So I want everybody to go to informed delivery, and what that means is that every day, once you've completed your registration, you will get an email from the Postal Service with a picture of all of the mail that you're supposed to get that day. So if something is missing, like your bill or a statement or something, you'll be able to know right away that it's missing. Also, through informed delivery, you can track packages. So if you are expecting something to come, a package to come, you can give delivery instructions, like put it in the garage or, leave by the back door, something like that, so that we can stop all those porch pirates from stealing our packages. And I also want everybody to go to the Social Security Administration and set up an online account as well. I don't know if you've done that before or already. You can get your annual Social Security statement from there. You can make any kind of changes to your account, like if you've changed your bank or your address, you can do that online. But we want you to do that before a scammer has a chance to do that for you, because we have known of cases where scammers have gotten login credentials and have changed addresses or bank account numbers on your investments or your Social Security checks. So we want you to do that before a scammer has a chance to create the account in your name. Okay? It's also a really good idea to set up something called two-factor authentication. So if ever you're using a device like your phone or your computer, or you're logging into an online account, see if you have the option to set two-factor authentication. So that means that in order to log into that account, you're going to need your password plus something else that changes every day, like a code that the company will send to you by email or text message, or maybe like me, you have your fingerprint as your second code, or maybe a facial scan. That's how I have to log into my phone. So that way, if a scammer does steal your password or buys it on the dark web or something, they still won't be able to access your online account because they don't have access to that second step. Of course, always shred all of your documents. And then we really encourage people to consider a credit freeze. Does anybody know what a credit freeze is? Okay, it's where you can lock down or freeze your credit report so that nobody can access it, not even you. So remember that, if a scammer stole my Social Security number and they wanted to take out a loan or a credit card in my name, they would put my name and my Social Security number on the application, and then the company would pull their credit report to see if they're a good risk. Well, if you have a credit freeze on your credit file, the company, trying to approve the credit won't be able to access your credit report, and the application will be denied. So the good thing is that it's easy and free to enact a credit freeze on your account. And you can also unfreeze it very easily, just online. So if you know that, let's say you have a credit freeze on your account, and you know that later this afternoon you're going to go buy a new car and you're going to finance it, you could log in unfreeze your credit report, and then automatically have it set to refreeze at the end of the day. Again, totally free to freeze and unfreeze your credit report. And you can also do that for your own file, for any minor children, like children or grandchildren, and then any deceased family members, because they are also prime targets for identity thieves. Okay? So, those are the websites and the phone numbers you would need to freeze your credit. I just want to remind people again that these phone numbers and websites are all, I have copies of my slides over there if you need it. Okay, so let's move on from there. I just want to give you, we do have, like 10 more minutes, so since we have the time, I just wanted to kind of walk you through the Better Business Bureau's website and how the BBB can help you. All of our services for consumers are free, so keep that in mind. But this is just a snapshot of the homepage of our website. And I know you can't see it. I apologize for that. But these are search bars right here. So you can search by a business's name or a category. You can search by phone number. So if you are searching for a roofer or something, and maybe you'll get a couple of names of companies that your friends or your neighbors have used, you can use our website to search for that company's name to see what kind of information the Better Business Bureau has on them. And for those people who aren't connected to the internet, you can also call us. That's our phone number right there. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that. Or you can also use our website and search by category. So maybe you're not searching for a particular company name, but you really do want to find an auto mechanic or a roofer or whatever. So in this instance, I searched for electricians, and I think that is zip code 54914, so Appleton. So these are all, this is what the results would look like. These are all company names. And if you clicked on one of those company names, then you go deeper into the company's report. And if you want to search for companies that have already been vetted by the Better Business Bureau, that meet our accreditation standards, including resolving any complaint issues that we bring to their attention, or we've already checked their licensing, we've already done background checks, you can search by for just accredited businesses only by this little toggle switch up at the top. So, wanted to show you that. Okay. And again, this is just kind of a snapshot of what the results look like. And also just to kind of explain a little bit, what does BBB accreditation mean? It means that the company has been pre-screened, so we're going to make sure that they have all of the proper licenses that they need, that they have a clean complaint history. So not that they've never, ever, ever had a complaint, but that when they do get a complaint, that they resolve the issue. I think that is the key there. We do a background check on the ownership, so we're checking for criminal history, sex offender registry, things like that, bankruptcy checks. And an accredited business just means that they promise to keep and maintain all of those BBB standards, including resolving any complaints. And we do this screening every year that they're an accredited business, not just once when they join. So, okay. And you won't be able to read this, but this is what the inside of a report looks like. Just wanted to call attention. See, we rate companies on an A+ through F scale. So that way it's real easy for you. One auto mechanic has a D rating, another one has a A-. Makes it a little easier for you to compare and contrast. And then we also let you read all of the complaints that we're trying to be as transparent as possible. So if they've ever received a complaint, you'll be able to read it, and you'll also be able to read the company's response. Okay? Yeah, sometimes people want to write reviews for companies. You can also read those on the BBB's website, whether they're positive, negative, or neutral. But if you are seeking some kind of resolution, You don't want to just give your opinion. You actually want the BBB's help to get that refund or to get that roof fixed or whatever. We would recommend that you file a complaint rather than a customer review. And only complaints will affect a company's rating. So I wanted to let you know about that. And this is what our Scam Tracker portal looks like. So remember how I told you that if you get called by a scammer, you can report it here, and we're going to plot it on a map, all those reports. So this is a map of the Appleton area, and all these dots on this map are reports from people who filed a Scam Tracker report. So you could actually zoom in. Let's say you lived at the top here of Lake Winnebago. You could see what's happening in your neck of the woods. So encourage you to do that, whether you're reporting a scam or checking out what's happening in your neighborhood. And then here are some other resources that we use commonly at the BBB. My favorite one here is Wisconsin court records. Has anybody ever used that? We're very lucky here in Wisconsin. We have public access to court records. A lot of states don't have that for free. So if you know a contractor's name or company name, you can search Wisconsin Circuit Court Access. Or if you just want to search, your granddaughter's new boyfriend with his first and last name, you can do that as well. So we're looking for any kind of criminal convictions, but it will also have access to family records and things like that as well. Let me just also put up my contact information if you want to write that down and give me a call anytime.